Hi everyone, I'm Nancy Hillis, and I'm creator of the Artist's Journey book, courses, and workshops. I'm an artist and psychiatrist, and I get to work with thousands of artists all over the country every year, and what I see is this recurring theme of artists saying to me, I feel like my art doesn't measure up to what I want it to be. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. It's about how you can transform that. I've watched so many artists do this, have a transformation in their work. And the way they do this is by moving around the 4 places we as artists get stuck. And so I'm going to give you a sneak peek into these 4 areas where today I'm going to walk you through these 4 traps. So you can see this and identify what that move is for you to move closer to the work you're here to do. And I'm going to also show you 2 powerful secret painting practices I've found for loosening up and releasing your authentic self-expression. So here's a sneak peek of what we'll cover today. First, the 4 traps where artists get stuck and how to move beyond them. Then I'll reveal the ugly painting practice that helped me create raw, expressive paintings that I love. Finally, you'll discover the #1 secret to creating abstract paintings that are so raw, immediate, and alive that they will astonish you. So let's get started with the 4 traps, the 4 places where artists get stuck. That's why I'm here, because I've watched this up close. There are these common places where we get stuck as artists, and I'm here to share with you what I've seen so that you might see yourself in this and see where you're getting stuck. And the most important thing of all is to realize that the artist's journey is an inner journey. So let's get started with the 4 traps, the 4 places where artists get stuck. That's why I'm here, because I've watched this up close. There are these common places where we get stuck as artists. And I'm here to share what I've seen so that you might see yourself in this and see where you're getting stuck. My artist's journey and my triumph is that I identified as a doctor first and then realized that I was an artist and that it's an inside job, it's an inner journey, and it doesn't come from the outside. And I think as artists, we tend to think we're the only ones who experience this. As I've observed so many thousands of artists over the years, I see that we're all on this journey. Every artist travels, a journey riddled with perils, and we all get stuck in various traps along the way. As artists, we travel through these perils, and I see 4 big traps on the journey in moving closer and closer to the fullest expression of who you are in your art. And no one outside of you can critique that movement. Trap #1. This story is called the technique trap. You could call it empty virtuosity or the tyranny of technique. This is the story you tell yourself, which is, I'll become a great artist once I learn enough, or once I learn all the techniques. And the reason I'm not great yet is because I just don't have all the techniques. I need to learn the techniques. I need to learn the secrets. Another variation on this is that if I buy all the tools and supplies, I'll get better at art. And so you go from workshop to workshop, from art store to art store, and from technique to technique for years. It's like you're searching for the Holy Grail. You think that art is technique, but one day you realize that art is not technique, because no amount of technique has gotten you closer to expressing your deepest art. You take all these technique classes and your paintings look like everyone else's. Repetitive, formulaic, and you're not happy with them. You feel like you're going in circles. And one day you get bored and you feel like giving up. You feel like a feeling of kind of resignation. Because you know that you could take 100 technique courses and still not create the paintings of your dreams. For years, I pursued technique. I thought if I just learned the right technique, I'd finally make paintings that wowed me and my viewers. But it was an elusive thing, and before I knew it, my paintings looked strategic, contrived, as if I was following a cookbook formula, and eventually I got bored. The paintings, while technically good, just didn't move me emotionally. But one day, I had a breakthrough. I was fed up with repetitive paintings. I had a dream of continuous line, and I went in and decided to create exploratory studies of minimal line and marks. I created this 26-piece assemblage of studies and was at first uncomfortable. They didn't look finished, and yet I realized that they had an immediacy and aliveness that I had previously never attained. I allowed them to just be, to live, as is. And this work informed what I've done ever since. This was so important to allow these so-called ugly works, these exploratory works, to live, because they became the nascent embryonic forms that informed a whole body of work. But I didn't know it at the time. This was an enormous breakthrough for me. And I also realized the power of working in a series rather than making one painting precious. So this reminds me of a story of a student who was avoiding her studio. Her approach was to start each painting with the goal of creating a masterpiece. This placed tremendous pressure on her. She started dreading her painting session, afraid that she had ruined the painting. Perfectionistic tendencies and her inner critic would get activated, and she would tend to overthink and second-guess her painting. She had licked the paint and noodle it to death because it felt like a life-or-death battle, like she was wrestling down each painting like Beowulf fighting for his life with the monster Grendel. It felt like a nightmare. It was incredibly painful and anxiety-provoking, and she had lost her joy in painting. She felt like giving up. But I remembered what I had learned from my own experience with the 26 exploratory work piece. I showed her the value in creating many starts with the idea that no particular painting is precious. Rather, she could create a series of paintings where she explores and experiments and doesn't worry so much about creating a masterpiece. The paradox in this approach is that it's often the paintings we don't plan, the ones we don't try so hard on, that surprise and delight us. A wonderful artist in Berkeley, California, Michael Cutlett, says, "A painting must be free to wander." He also said, "If I already know what's going to happen in my painting, it's all over." I love that experimental, exploratory attitude of Michael Cutlett. So the old belief is, if I just learn more techniques, I'll be a great artist. And the new belief is, becoming a great artist is about the movement of coming closer and closer to who you are. It's about reaching the fullest expression of who you are in your art. The secret to this is not technique. No amount of technique will get you there. Technique is only there to facilitate expression, but it is not expression itself. You can't lead with technique. What takes you there is the willingness to experiment, which is based on trusting yourself. And what does this look like? It's searching and finding your way. It's exploring. It's allowing for the awkward and ugly paintings that inevitably emerge. It's activating a sense of wonder and allowing in your art. So remember, the answer is inside of you. Being an artist is about continually evolving and reaching for your fullest self-expression. It's an inner journey of self-expression. Trap number 2. This story is called the critique trap. And it's driven by the belief that the answer is outside of yourself. So here's a story from a workshop. A student approached me and asked, "Will you give me an art critique? Will you tell me what to do to make this a good or great painting? I'm not happy with it." Variations on this are, "Can you give me some idea of what is not working in this painting? I have been working on it for a while and nothing I do seems to make me feel happy." So here's a story from a workshop. I call this the pursuit of critique. I worked with a student at a workshop who created expressive, immediate, raw, calligraphic, continuous line, scroll-like horizontal paintings. And I watched her create astonishing work quickly and with confidence, only to turn around and see that she had covered it up completely. I was stunned. Literally, I'd see this amazing, alive, authentic work as I was teaching the workshop, and I'd turn to talk with someone for a moment, and when I turned back, her astonishing marks were obliterated completely. They were gone. And I was stunned by how quickly this artist expressed herself through gestural expression and just as quickly covered it up. I observed then that she looked confused and defeated. It was as if this pure, raw expression, which had leapt out of her unmediated, was absolutely terrifying and must be placed back in the container, back in Pandora's box. The treasures of her soul, of her own true expression, were being erased before my eyes. After seeing this pattern repeated twice, I stopped her as she backed away from her work and asked, "How do you feel about this?" She looked quizzically at me and said, "You mean you think it's done?" And I said, "Well, you're the artist, you're the composer, the author of this work. It's your painting, it's your expression, it's what's meaningful to you. But I want you to know that, for whatever it's worth, I'd take it right now as is. I love the rawness, the honesty, and the immediacy of your work." And she responded, "But it only took 10 minutes. We explored it further, and she told me that she felt she should keep going because it came so quickly and easily, as if her facility and ease made the work invalid. She had an idea in her head that it was supposed to be harder than this. She was supposed to suffer. She mused that perhaps she was supposed to create many layers. My heart ached when I heard all of that, and I said, it doesn't matter if it took 10 seconds, 10 minutes, or 10 years. What matters is that it's true and it expresses you. This experience called to mind for me the work of the poet Mary Oliver in her poem I love called The Wild Geese. It's about self-compassion, and the opening lines say it all. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. So I say to you, trust yourself. Trust yourself to love what you love and to express what you love. And don't cover it up. Let us see you. The most exciting and alive paintings show us you. Now, you may be wondering and thinking to yourself, yes, but how do I create great art? Well, imagine being at your canvas, at your easel, and someone is giving you an answer for what to do with your painting. The problem with this is that it leads you away from yourself, from trusting your own creative impulse, and even from the subtle, inarticulable ideas that are embryonic and that bubble up and that can easily be missed. I think that the creative impulse is very, very subtle sometimes, and we easily miss it. And the only way we capture it is if we stay present in ourselves and stay connected. And I think that when we get outside influence, the risk is we're painting really for someone else, someone else's ideal, someone else's aesthetic, someone else's opinions, and even rules. And so I think this is a very tricky area. And the risk, too, is that these subtle creative impulses can get covered up and silenced with too much outside influence. And so what happens is that your paintings can become predictable, formulaic, and strategic. So what I do is help students ask themselves, and I ask her to do this as well. Ask yourself these rhetorical questions. And so she did this so she could self-assess her own work. The first question I like to ask is, what if? So ask yourself this question, what if I try this? What if I try that? And see where your mind goes. See where the reaches of your imagination can go with just that question. I think this activates exploration and experimentation as much as any questions. The second question is, how do I feel about this painting? And what do I notice about this feeling? So you try to stay tuned into your intuition about the painting. How does it feel? How do I feel about it? Do I like it? Do I not? Do I want to stay with this? Do I want to cover it up? Do I want to allow myself to stay with this painting right now, even though it's uncomfortable? The next question is there visual contrast, visual excitement? The eye likes to be excited, and there's many ways we can do this. So we can use the principles of art to create visual excitement and yet not be hamstrung by these rules. And the fourth question is, how can I experiment further with this? Can I take it further into a series? Can I imagine allowing this painting to live as an experimental, exploratory work? These are powerful rhetorical questions you can ask yourself to self-assess your art. Basically, we're talking about cultivating an attitude of exploration and experimentation. I'm reminded of my own story of grappling with this very same issue of looking outside of myself, looking to a teacher, an expert, or other artists to guide me when I didn't quite like my painting. And I thought maybe they'd be able to tell me what to do to fix it so that I'd like it. So this is similar to the painting I did. It was a large painting. So one day a wonderful artist and a good friend of mine saw this painting, a painting similar to this one, and she didn't like the big orange shape I had on this larger painting. She told me she thought it would improve the painting if I just got rid of it. I followed her advice and I knocked back the orange shape, but I still wasn't happy with the result. In fact, I felt that it was worse and that I liked the painting better before I messed with it. And it seemed as if I had ruined the painting. I tried and tried to recover the original freshness of the painting to bring the orange shape back, but I never could redeem that painting no matter what I tried, and I ended up tossing it. And the lesson I learned is to trust my own intuition about my art. This is the only way it will truly be mine. So the old belief you say to yourself is the answer is outside of myself. And the new belief is the answer is inside of me and it always has been. And so we need to remember this. It's very much like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, who finally realized that the answer wasn't with the wizard, the man behind the curtain. It was inside of her the whole time. It's the truth that lives inside your body, your truth. It's in your own gestural expression. And the challenge is allowing it to come out. I would say to you, don't search for your style. Your style will find you. It's in what's trying to be expressed that only you can find and express. And rather than a critique, look for a great guide who will help you assess your own work by being able to ask yourself these deeper rhetorical questions. Trap 3. This story is called The Imposter Trap. So let's look at a story about the imposter trap. It's the belief that I'm not a real artist, I don't have my own style, I can't call myself an artist yet, I don't deserve to be called an artist. And variations on this theme are the belief that I never went to art school, and so I'm not a real artist, or I went to art school, but I still don't feel like an artist. Or I gave up being an artist years ago because I was told that it wasn't a practical career. And I often hear artists say variations on this theme in my workshops. Others say, I'm not an artist because I can't really express what's inside of me onto the canvas. Or I'm not original, I'm not that creative, I don't know what to create, and so I copy the work of artists I admire. So this is a story I call The Pursuit of Identity. You feel like you're not a real artist because you've learned all these techniques and you follow a recipe or a formula and you follow the rules. Yet you still don't love your art. Here's a story. I call this The Pursuit of Identity. My story is that I had difficulty calling myself an artist. Even though I'd been painting for over 10 years, my identity was as a doctor first and foremost. How could I be both a doctor and an artist? Also, I didn't go to art school. But one day, my friend Sharon urged me to enter 2 of my paintings in an exhibition in Pacifica, California. And I almost didn't because I had never entered my art in a show. Plus, the juror was a famous artist, Terry St. John, and it was known that the competition would be stiff, especially from artists in San Francisco. And the limit for the show was to submit 2 paintings. So I entered anyway, and I entered at the time I was working in more figurative approach with watercolor. And to my astonishment, I got both my paintings accepted into the show. And it was at that moment that I realized that I'd been holding myself back. I had to realize that I was indeed both an artist and a physician. It had seemed like such a stretch to be both because medicine and chemistry, which I had studied, were so scientific and seemingly the furthest thing from art. Yet in that moment, I realized that I could bring together both medicine and art. I have a wonderful story of a student who came into my workshop who confided to me that she felt like a fraud. She had never gone to art school, and while she created amazing fiber art pieces and quilts and textiles, she felt she wasn't really an abstract painter. I could see the influence of her background in textiles in her intricate mark making that was layered and textured. One day, she created a piece that moved me to tears. It had a childlike innocence and playfulness, a freedom that reminded me of the words by Rilke. Oh, hours of childhood. And it's a longer poem, but those words haunt me because for me they speak about the fleetingness of time and especially of the time of childhood. And here's the poem. Oh, hours of childhood, when behind each shape more than the past appeared, and what streamed out before us was not the future. We felt our bodies growing and were at times impatient to be grown up, half for the sake of those with nothing left but their grown-upness. Rilke. I told her this and she cried. She had been telling herself that her works appeared chaotic, disheveled, and almost psychotic, and she had devalued the rawness and immediacy of her work. So I shared with her an exercise called the rhythmic painting exercise that I love to show artists in my workshops and classes. And I love this exercise because it confers a tremendous sense of freedom and allowing of one's unique gestural expression that comes through your body onto the canvas. So she started working with this rhythmic exercise and she absolutely ran with it. She was on fire. And now, several years later, she is a prolific abstract artist known for her rhythmic mark making. And she's just doing great. So the old belief is, I'm not a real artist. And the new belief is, I'm an artist and I'm the one who decides this. An artist creates art. And the problem is, we aren't embracing this definition because we feel we don't have enough skills. We don't have enough techniques. But the problem is it's a mindset issue. Only you can decide and call yourself an artist. Trap number 4. This is called the judgment trap. This is, in essence, a story about being terrified of facing and expressing yourself because you feel like you don't know what you're doing. Afraid of judgment, both from others and from yourself, because at the deepest level, you feel vulnerable about putting your art out there because it brings up internal insecurities. One person told me that she was a people pleaser and she was afraid of standing firmly in her own shoes and taking up space, of being seen, of owning her art without feeling the need to explain or apologize. Or others have said they feel this judgment because they've been told that being an artist is indulgent, frivolous, decadent, and selfish. So here's a story. One artist said to me, I'm terrified of expressing myself in my art. What if it's not any good? I call this the pursuit of validation. Years ago, I created abstract horse collages on full sheets of watercolor paper, and I had quite a following. But one day, I felt the urge to keep evolving as an artist. And I noticed this desire in me to create large, abstract, mixed media paintings of horses, but I wasn't sure how. How would I translate the horse to a much larger canvas and translate collage to painting? I was unsure. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing or even how to begin. 8 months elapsed, and still no large abstract horse painting was to be found. One day, I'd had enough, and I asked myself, what have you got to lose? You can always cover it up with gesso if you don't like it and start again. And so with that, I grabbed some paints, a large brush, and a big bucket of water, and I dipped my brush in the fluid paint and made my first large gestural brush stroke. That one brush stroke broke the surface tension and was the game changer that led me to where I am today as an abstract artist. 0 to 1, just begin. This is a concept from mathematics, that the biggest difference, the largest interval between numbers is between 0 and 1. It's kind of like going from nothing to something. So I say to you, do something, anything. If you don't like it, you can always cover it up and start again, but just start. And who knows, you might just love the brush strokes you just made. So here's a story from a student I worked with. The student was staring at the canvas in front of her, frozen. She couldn't make a move. She felt paralyzed by self-judgment, inner criticism, second-guessing, and the fear that she'd make a wrong move or would create a terrible painting. She said this often comes up for her after she's had a good painting or a great painting. This is when fear arises, where she's created a painting she likes or even loves, and then she's afraid that the next paintings won't hold up to that painting she loved. The next time she comes to the canvas, she's afraid she won't be able to create like that again, that it was a one-off, a fluke. The thing I guided her to see by asking her a series of reflection questions, of rhetorical questions, is that it's not unusual for the inner critic to show up for artists because indeed, it's a vulnerable thing to create something. It brings up fear of failure, of exposure, of rejection. And it's not unusual for this inner criticism to rear its ugly head after we've created a great painting. We fear we'll never be able to paint like that again. And the thing I guided her to do was to think of painting as creating exploratory studies or experimental works. I guided her to an exercise I've created called the 6 Mac Hat exercise. And so I had her create a 6 Mac Hat piece where she quickly, without thinking, marked up 6 squares on the paper. Then I had her create many painting starts by activating the canvas with stream of consciousness mark making, and I encouraged her to see these works as experiments. Within a few minutes, she was feeling relief, and a smile came over her face as she found joy again in exploratory painting. So the old belief here is, I'm terrified of facing myself and expressing me in my art because others may judge me, including myself. And the new belief is, I came here to be myself, to express my deepest, most meaningful art and life. I experiment deeply and I paint for myself. Bringing joy or meaning to others with my art is a bonus. The worst thing I could do is to refuse the call of my yearning to create art. I say yes to the idea that I paint for myself. I didn't come here to please anyone. I came here to be myself and to express my deepest, most meaningful art and life. The inner journey. Have you noticed how all these traps have a commonality of going outside of ourselves? Of looking for the answer out there? It's what keeps us trapped, because the work of being an artist is in the end, ultimately, an inner journey. And that's why I created this experience. So to summarize what you need to believe, the inner work you need to do is know that your art is an inner journey of self-expression. Believe that you have your own signature, lexicon, and style. Decide that you are an artist. Claim it. Trust yourself, experiment, and paint for you. We do this work inside of ourselves. This is inner work. The problem is going outside of ourselves is what keeps us trapped. So you may be wondering, how do we work with this? There is a practice I call the ugly painting practice. It's one of the concepts I found compelling for releasing the inner artist. This is a practice that has helped me personally create raw, expressive paintings that I love, and it's also helped hundreds of artists I've worked with in my courses and workshops. It's essentially a mindset shift where we activate an attitude of allowing because we begin to understand that ugly paintings are often the nascent embryonic forms of new work trying to emerge in our art. Being an artist is about continually evolving our work. It's not about repeating formulas that work. It's about going to that edge, stepping into the unknown, and taking that leap. It's about experimentation. And in order to truly innovate and evolve your work, you've got to be able to allow for and tolerate the unfamiliar, the unusual, the paintings you hate, the so-called ugly paintings. This is a concept we explore that threads through all my classes and workshops. The 6 maquette exercise. This is a concept we work with early on, and it's an exercise I developed that was extrapolated for abstract painters informed by the British sculptor Henry Moore, who created maquettes or little studies, thousands of little studies for his monumental sculptures. So the concept of the maquette is that these studies are where you explore your own personal signature or lexicon of mark making by moving past the editor, the critic, and releasing these marks without thinking. And this is something we explore deeply in all my classes. And then there's the Holy Grail. This is the one secret to creating abstract paintings you love. This secret is simple yet profound. The secret is trusting yourself. In order to deeply experiment, which is the sine qua non of being an artist, and thus to express your deepest work, you've simply got to trust yourself. This is how you experiment. This is the inner journey we're talking about. And this is the work of my life, guiding artists and creators to trust and believe in themselves. And this is what I came here to do in everything that I teach, and especially in my course, The Artist's Journey. And so if you'd like to go deeper in your art, I invite you to join me in my course, The Artist's Journey, 3 Secrets of the Masters, because we know that the artist's journey is an inner journey. To get to your deepest self-expression in your art, you must explore the depths of yourself and the reaches of your imagination. We get stuck because we look for the answers outside of ourselves. In the artist's journey, we look inward. We dive down deep and look inside ourselves. As we explore the inner landscape that affects your art, as well as 3 concepts that make 90% of the difference in creating paintings that wow you. These concepts will help you consistently and confidently create art that is authentically you. I'm going to walk you through the journey we will go through together. Even if you plan to try to do this deeper work on your own, feel free to stay with me as you'll see the process you need to move through to get to the elusive, deepest work we all crave to do. And this deepest work is the work of my life, both in art and psychiatry, guiding artists and creators and people to believe in themselves. So in Module 1, we'll explore answering the call of your yearning to create. In Module 1, we begin our journey together. You've answered the call to create with meaning and aliveness. Now you'll lay the foundation for creating your deepest art by exploring your inner landscape as well as your big why for creating. You'll begin mapping your way on the journey by reflecting on your intentions and goals, as well as cultivating a daily practice of exploration and experimentation in your painting. You'll explore your inner landscape in the Artist Journey Workbook, which I've honed after leading this process with thousands of artists like you, and which you can download and keep in your studio. You'll begin documenting your journey on the Artist Journey Vision Board, which you can download and keep in a notebook. Here, you'll be invited to write down in your art journal your observations, revelations, dreams, wishes, ahas, your big why, as well as making note of your inner and outer resources and provisions. You can make notes of your evolving why for creating your art. You can also place images, photos, and sketches there. Because we know that documenting your journey is a powerful tool for developing your studio practice with awareness and consistency. It sends a message to your unconscious that your creative life has value and visibility. You'll download the Artist Journey materials list for suggested art supplies, and you'll be invited into our wonderful, vibrant, and supportive community on Facebook, on our private Facebook page. And here are some examples of the wonderful work there by artists from all over the world, and some responses and conversations. And then you'll explore lectures on mapping your way on your artist journey. This will include experimenting with automatic drawing. And automatic drawing emerged in the early 20th century as a way to express the unconscious mind beyond conscious control. This is a stream of consciousness, automatic, unplanned mark making and painting that relies upon trusting your gesture, allowing the intelligence of your body to express itself, and being liberated as you suspend the judging, second-guessing, and self-doubting mind. You'll be cultivating an attitude of exploration and experimentation as you're invited to big risk-taking, which you'll explore in your studio as well as in your journal. One of the most important things you can do for your development as an artist is to cultivate an attitude of experimentation with daily practice in your art journal or studio. You'll lay the foundation to release your own signature, your own personal lexicon, through lessons and exercises on the expressive vocabulary of mark making. Marks are an extension of you. They are expressive of your hand, your gesture, emotions, and energy. Marks mirror your inner state, and we can create compelling dialogues between contrasting emotions or states using the concept of predominance to make the composition dynamic. And finally, you'll explore 3 video lessons on automatic drawing with experimenting with a grid understructure and the power and freedom of working with the constraint of a grid and the interaction with automatic mark making. To further get at your elusive deepest work, we'll move into Module 2 in the second week. And here, you'll learn the first secret of the masters of trusting yourself. You'll develop a deeper understanding of the importance of your inner and outer resources in supporting your studio practice and your ongoing development and evolution on your artist journey. You'll explore and cultivate an attitude of self-trust and experimentation in the face of fear so that you can create your deepest work. You'll reflect on your inner and outer provisions in order to cultivate and access your own robust psychological resources essential to creating your deepest art. And this is where you'll explore your inner stories, narratives, psychology, beliefs, memories, and myths about creating. You'll explore the inner provisions you use to help you when you go into your studio and face a blank canvas. This is often the moment when everything shifts, when you see what has been holding you back, because only you can see this. And it often just takes someone showing up to help you look within yourself with the right questions, reflections, and prompts. Discover the most important secret for artists that affects everything in your art, the holy grail of painting. This will guide you to creating paintings that wow you. You'll further dive deeper and activate the surface with automatic drawing and painting, led by your subconscious, so you'll be able to express your true self in your work. and you'll develop a history of surface with flux, which will help you create paintings full of wonder and surprise. We'll explore building a surface history of layers, and then we'll move into 6 exploratory studies based on the 6 maquette concept, and further exploring the concepts of simplicity and constraint. And lastly, using these exploratory works or maquettes as painting starts. Then we'll move on to Module 3. In Module 3, you'll learn the second secret of the masters, composition, and in particular, simplifying composition. We'll simplify composition to a few things that make 90% of the difference in strengthening your paintings. You'll learn how to find your way with composition. You'll learn how to simplify composition and discover that composition is ultimately intuitive and how to compose intuitively. You'll explore in lectures and videos finding your way as you paint as well as composing intuitively. Further explorations include developing a rhythmic painting start, as well as painting wet into wet. And finally, threaded through all these lessons in all the modules is the importance of the inner landscape of trusting yourself so you can deeply explore and experiment in your art. In Module 4, you'll learn the third secret of the masters, the value of values. This is one of my absolute favorite topics. You'll work to understand why value is so important on your artist journey. You'll work with value patterns as starting experiments for creating powerful, visually compelling paintings. These are little value maquettes. You'll also learn how to simplify value and learn the common errors regarding value. You'll experiment with creating a 4-color, 2-value palette that has constraint built into it that will create gorgeous, harmonious colors every time. Just this lesson alone has been a game changer for many artists. An artist came to one of my workshops and told me that this lesson alone was worth the entire tuition for the class. We'll also explore the importance of structure in your painting and how to use value to create structure in your painting starts. Threaded through all these lessons is the overarching concept of trusting yourself as you explore and experiment with these concepts in your art. And then in Module 5, which is our wrap-up module, you'll reflect on your artist journey. We'll explore lessons learned throughout the course. We'll continue to reflect on our why and revelations and observations. We'll talk about creativity and the unknown and the value of failures and mistakes. And the question of where now? Where now do you go on your artist journey? What's the next yes for you? So I'd like to tell you about a few students I've had in the artist journey. Christy Skur from Australia was in the very beginning artist journey class I ever gave, and she said, "My yearning to create on a deeper level and a desire for understanding the principles of making good art were answered beyond expectation. Nancy gives the gift of soul work with intuitive abstract art, moving through fear and into the present moment with joyful experimentation. I now understand the path to my best work, to be able to paint with an expressive aliveness, and am deeply grateful for Nancy's genuine care and individual attention. The content is presented sincerely and simply and is deeply motivating." And Julie Huang of Palo Alto, California, said, "Nancy's workshop was phenomenal. I have always had a hard time getting started with a painting project as I would stare at a blank canvas. What will I paint? Will it look like what it should look like? These insecurities often led to passing up on the opportunity to paint for another day. What I've learned from Nancy's workshop is that I don't need to necessarily know what I want to paint. Simply activating the canvas makes starting much less intimidating. The abstract pieces I created in the workshop will serve as a reminder and inspiration for me that I can paint with confidence." And then Teresa Pisani, "I have a Bachelor of Arts degree, and we were taught art history, painting techniques, observation, etc., but never was the key to true creativity given to us. And it all lies in our attitude, trust, taking risks, experimentations, accepting our errors and dark nights of the soul, which you reveal so well in a clear and comprehensible manner, speaking from the heart. The artist's journey, after 50 years of painting, was the turning point in my work. I have never felt such enthusiasm with my work. Thank you, Nancy, for your truly enlightening words and videos. Every artist, whether debutante or established, should know about your teachings. I can never thank you enough for all you have done and are still doing. So here's what you get in the artist's journey. I know this is a lot, so let me recap what you will experience in the program. First, we cover the 3 secrets of the masters. Secret number 1, the holy grail of painting, the one practice that will transform your painting and your ability to experiment as an artist. Secret 2, we move into the first technical game changer, which is composition. And we employ simplicity and constraint and discover how to compose intuitively. And secret number 3, the second technical game changer, value. You learn the principles of visual contrast so you can create paintings that wow you. And these 2 technical game changers make 90% of the difference in creating paintings that astonish you. Then I have 4 bonuses exclusively for those of you who join the Artist Journey. The first is the Artist Journey workbook that I've honed over years and years of working with thousands of artists. And people have said just the workbook made such a difference in their lives. The vision board. I have a vision board that you can print off and put into a notebook. I've had students create large folders and binders with numerous vision board sheets of paper on it. You can also download a larger poster-sized vision board, and this kind of guides you through your journey, and you can mark on it, write on it, that type of thing, but basically document your journey, which is extremely valuable. And then we also have a Facebook group with an incredible community of amazing artists who are deeply encouraging and inspiring to one another. And I love getting on there and interacting with the artists. And finally, you'll have a 30-minute one-on-one call with me where you can ask me any questions you have about creating abstract art, getting in touch with your inner landscape, stopping procrastination, sticking to your daily practice, or any other questions you have. So there's 2 ways you can study with me in the Artist Journey. The first way is you can join today in the Artist Journey 3 Secrets of the Masters course and get started for $697 or 3 easy payments of $247, and you can start now. This course will move you from being stuck, uninspired, and bored to creative and alive as you fully express yourself on the canvas. And we'll do this in only 4 weeks, and the investment is simple and affordable for anyone who wants to transform their art starting now. So I want you to think about your big dreams for your art. I invite you to imagine your big dreams. What are your big dreams for your art and life? Now, I invite you to go deeper into your heart's yearnings to express yourself in your paintings and to create your deepest art. The risk here is not doing the work you're here to do. And I'd love for you to come in and do the work with me and get the transformation. I believe that as artists, we're on this journey, this cycle of creation. We yearn for something, for a feeling of meaning and aliveness, and we're called forth into the journey, into something new, into the unknown, and it's scary. We're not sure. We think we don't know what we're doing. We come up with excuses or diversions that keep us away from our dreams. And for a while, we refuse. We turn our face away from our dream of creating our deepest, most astonishing art. But one day, we can't take it anymore. We simply had enough of refusal, and we refuse the refusal. We say yes, and we plunge into the unknown. And it's riddled with perils. Perils like self-doubt, inner criticism, second-guessing, procrastination, even resignation. But there are guides to help us, and that's what I'm here to do. And even when you face the dark night of the soul, that moment of greatest self-doubt, I'm here to guide you to trust yourself so you can explore and experiment deeply in your art and face those dark angels of doubt and go ahead anyway into your deepest art. The work of my life is guiding people, and artists in particular, to believe in themselves. And so I ask you, what is the dream you simply must say yes to? I'd love to be your guide on your inner journey of creating your deepest art in life. Thank you. If you'd like to join me, you can click on the buttons below and find out more.